Hello, and welcome to Downtime Activities, and welcome to the Bonus Action Podcast Videocast, where Will and I, and very occasionally somebody else, goes over a broad topic to do with RPGs or storytelling, and have the conversations we would normally rant to each other about, but this time on camera. And this time, specifically, we're going to be talking about something near and dear to both of our hearts, one part very near and dear to me and the other more near and dear to you, but overall, we like them both. And that is character secrets and, somewhat by extension, shenanigans characters. So let's start. I'll start by describing what character secrets are, and then you can talk shenanigans. What is a shenanigans character? Which is kind of our own term for something. Mm-hmm. But character secrets can be a broad scope of things, right? A character secret, the broad idea, like the general sense of what a character secret is it's something to do with the character that they keep secret from the rest of the party, and oftentimes from everybody that they meet as well. It can be something about a backstory, something about the nature of the individual themselves, something they know that they don't want other people to know, something that they're seeking to do that they don't want the rest of the party to know is their true quest in the background. There's all sorts of things that can be a character secret. On the other end, what is a shenanigans character?
Shenanigans character is sort of an extension of character secrets because a shenanigans character sort of has to involve character secrets to some degrees. What we refer to as a shenanigans character is a character meant to sort of get a big gotcha reveal moment with the rest of the party. They're characters who are not what they seem on the surface, and it's always a character build or backstory or concept that involves cutting some sort of deal with the DM. On the one hand, characters that are secretly working for the villain kind of fit into that camp, but it's even just characters where statistical allowances have been made or certain items or changes have been allowed by the DM, usually at the cost of something else, in order to kind of get some sort of reaction or reveal, or just to play a sort of non-traditional character.
Or at the very least, a character who traditionally you wouldn't be able to, because if you're following rules as written exactly and not cutting deals or making some sort of rule adjustment to make the character possible to play.
There are some ways to do shenanigans characters without bending the rules, but it's much harder to do characters that way. It's just like shenanigans characters are extremely non-standard characters for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm. To start with, let's talk character secrets a little bit. Kind of go into why we, as a group, fell in love with character secrets and how we can use those. Character secrets goes way back to the before time. Back to, not the first game I ever ran, but the first game I ran for kind of what has become our core group. There's some come gone over time, but the kind of core group of people we play RPGs with, I ran one big D&D campaign back in college that was kind of the core group of people playing together, and started it with every character having a secret. I stole that from somewhere at the time, some much better DM than me, who still is a much better DM than me, I assume. I don't remember who it was, but it was advice I'd gotten from some YouTube video or something in the past, so we'll just carry that on. I wish I could credit them better now. But the basic gist of how I went about that, for that campaign specifically, was during character creation, I took each player aside from the rest of the group and discussed with them what their secret was going to be. Everyone had one. Everyone knew that everyone had one, so everyone was kind of expectant for those to be revealed and wondering what it could end up being for this person and trying to guess, does this have to do with so-and-so's secret, I wonder? And that kind of fun little game was played throughout the campaign. And they varied wildly. There's a big range of what a secret was to a lot of these players. And some people came in with like, I have a character in mind who has a secret. Here's what it is. And some people are like, I have to have a secret? Do you have any ideas? And I was like, hey, what about this? And they're like, that's cool. Let's do that. And so I think a good idea would be kind of discuss some of the examples of that to give ideas of how broad secrets can be.
And even just character secrets sort of over the history of us playing, I think, are fair game for this discussion. And that's kind of the point of character secrets, is they don't have to be big world-altering reveals when they happen, but it is something that your character is, for one reason or another, trying to keep secret from other members of the party, other people in the world, sort of whatever that case may be. A very important caveat before we have this discussion: character secrets should not be a secret from the DM.
Talk to your dungeon master. This is not a competitive game.
And like, no matter what RPG system you play, everything about your character needs to be revealed to the person running the game. Mm-hmm. That's the only way this stuff works. If you're playing the game right, the game master is not your enemy. He is not there trying to kill the player. He is going to make some stuff uncomfortable in the sense of there will be moments where your characters or you as a player is looking at your DM going, "Oh, you son of a bitch."
But then it turns out it was another player who sent the letter all along.
Or it's it's for the sake of telling a story. It's for the sake of sitting at the table and having fun. You can't keep secrets from your game master. This does, unless it's, you end on a cliffhanger and it's the party, over the course of that week before you play again, coming up with a clever plan to win this unwinnable combat and you want to spring it on your DM. That can be acceptable as long as you're all friends and it's all done in good faith. Mm-hmm. But you can't keep your character secrets from the DM.
And if you have a good DM, you absolutely won't want to, because your DM will take that secret and they will weave it into the world and they will make it matter, and they will make moments where it almost comes up or parts of it are shown but not shown absolutely blatantly to everybody. You're just the person who realizes that this is part of your secret.
And a good DM will at times give you opportunities to dodge the reveal of your secret, and potentially at times give you no choice. That's part of why you want to build this whole system into the game. It's to foster storytelling. It's to make characters more interesting, make characters more complex. So, with that little sort of caveat out of the way, we can talk about...
Let's talk secrets.
And just, character secrets and just sort of the vast variety of them. Thinking back to that original, 7-person party?
It was initially 6 and then very quickly 7.
And was essentially 7 all through the rest of the game. Mm-hmm. The character secrets ranged from, having stolen this little silver idol, not really knowing what it did, but knowing it was important, to character secretly being nobility, to one character being a werewolf who was not in control of his abilities, to, the warlock's patron was actually this super evil, extremely powerful lich who was responsible
the source
for
of the lycanthropy.
Another character's lycanthropy. And they ran the gauntlet in terms of severity, in terms of danger to the party, in terms of how quickly they were revealed and the ramifications of revealing them. And each one being revealed was by and large a sort of obvious moment and a very interesting moment.
Mm-hmm. I think the one that stands out, the two that stand out the most from that to me are the werewolf. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that campaign at the beginning, it was very heavily Mediterranean inspired. In the beginning, was very gladiatorial in the combats that were being done. And in an arena combat at night, a full moon rises, and all of a sudden, this fight that's kind of right on the cusp flips, and your heroic barbarian is able to win the day, nearly killing everyone in the arena as he turned into a werewolf. Everyone in the arena, including you all. Mm-hmm. But that was kind of a cool reveal moment that really had this awesome reaction from everybody at the table. The other big one being that one of the party members was kind of secretly selling out another one of the party members.
Or had
been prior to the events of the campaign at the very least. And that was this big reveal of this kind of one player going over the edge of the map in order to find out who it was that sold you out, who's behind this, only to hear that it was the guy you've been traveling with for months now.
Well, and those two are very interesting examples, because one of them was forced to come out very early. There's no way for, Sparadauer, the great barbarian of the north, to avoid that secret being revealed when it was. And then it's all of a sudden something that doesn't necessarily change how we look at that character, how we feel about that character, but it's all of a sudden a new, very important thing that we need to keep in mind all through the rest of the campaign.
Yes.
We have no choice but to be aware of the cycles of the moon.
Be very aware.
He was very aware. We have no point but to keep it in mind all through the rest of our travels and the rest of our adventures, and it becomes something of a tool to use as well. Mm-hmm. Whereas the reveal that Holt was imprisoned at the beginning of the campaign because Tom sold him out was only brought up because a player, made the decision to track down something that at that point in the campaign didn't matter anymore. It was ancient history, but just for the sake of his own closure was trying to figure out who it was that sold him out, and that sort of jackknifed into another character's secret. Which was just an incredible reveal. It left me feeling actually betrayed. But it, sort of long-term, didn't end up having any effect on the relationship of the party. But it was done sort of entirely for that one moment. And it very nearly... He was starting to... Costigan was starting to think that he was just going to essentially get away with it at that point.
Yeah.
He was just fairly certain that we had reached a point in that campaign where that secret was never going to come up and would never matter.
and it very likely wouldn't have if you as a player didn't seek it out. And I think kind of the kind of three main ways that a secret gets revealed is that the individual with the secret reveals it. Mm-hmm. The DM another player hunts down and finds that it's player driven to reveal that secret, or the DM brings it forth.
Right.
Be it here's an opportunity and the player takes it, or this has to happen, deal with it. And I think this is going to be kind of jumping, but just to give an example of something like that, a secret in our Star Wars game that was run on this. Yeah, there was kind of, if you haven't seen the Artifacts of the Grey campaign and all the campaigns leading up to it, we did this big multiple different Star Wars stories and the different kind of settings of Rebellion story, Edge of the Empire story, and
Force Sensitive.
A Force Sensitive story. And then slowly those stories all combined into one campaign, and it was a fun little story we got to run. Anyway, one of the players was playing a essentially semi-decommissioned ARC trooper on the run from the Empire who had been a part of Order 66, had killed Jedi, specifically killed one, and still had the lightsaber from that Jedi as a trophy. And was now moving with a group that included 3 Force Sensitives, one of which was a active member of the people that he committed Order 66 upon. But they didn't know he had this lightsaber. And then a moment happened where they needed 3 lightsabers to open a puzzle, basically. And another NPC was like, oh, well, that's fine. This guy's got one, because he had seen it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden everyone's like, well, why do you have one of them? And then that secret comes out, those conversations happen. And that was very much me as the person running the game, as the Star Master, as we called it in that system, being like, you know what, deal with this. What you going to do about it? Because I knew it wasn't going to unravel anything. It wasn't going to be bad for that player that secret came out. The way I built that puzzle, it had to, and it was funny that the NPC is the person who brought it out. And I knew the conversations that would come of it would be very interesting, and those interactions would be.
Right, and it's, and it helps just to reveal a piece of character backstory. It helps to sort of lengthen out and expand upon the world, and it makes sort of all of the characters involved in that conversation a little more interesting, because you get sort of the indignation, but not necessarily surprise on the one hand. You get the, you get this sort of grumpiness of all right, fine, you caught me. And then you get a character like mine whose entire action is am I the only person who doesn't have a laser sword around here? Do you have a laser sword? What the fuck's going on? And then just spending the next 2 episodes hunting around for a laser sword.
So you can have one too.
Just, because I feel left out. You kind of, it just expands. Character secrets have an amazing ability to grow characters who, even ones who aren't directly related to the secret itself, and it helps to just make the party dynamic more complex and a little more interesting. It is entirely possible that a character secret never comes out, or at least never comes out fully. In that very first D&D campaign, mine very nearly didn't. Despite your attempts, and an attempt of my own, multiple times, to get people to sort of start questioning it. my character, I was playing a halfling assassin who was secretly like the last surviving member of a like halfling noble house, essentially. He was like supposed to be a baron. His parents were killed by like a cousin or a distant relative who kind of took control of their little province, and he was still being hunted by the sort of agents of that character. And we more than once encountered other members of that family who were looking for the heir to this little province, and trying to and essentially sort of fighting back against this usurper, who directly gave the actual name of my character more than once, which the other halfling in the party had written on his character sheet, like,
find... I need to find this guy.
Yeah, it's like, this is halfling nobility. Like, we gotta find this guy. And then I bought a pet raven halfway through the campaign and gave it my actual name because I thought it was funny. And nobody batted an eye.
Nobody caught on.
It, like, multiple times, like, sort of both... You attempted to bring it up to kind of remind people about it, and I even did it once just to see if anybody would notice, and nobody put any effort into chasing that lead down at all, and my character secret would have gone the entire campaign without ever coming back if you hadn't, like, finally just, like, forced it out into the open in kind of a roundabout way in, like, the second to last session of the campaign.
When the half-Huron, halfling cavalry of your people rode to help you in the final fight.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so, yeah, and that was an example of, like, I wanted that secret to come out at some point, and I wanted it to matter.
Right.
And it's totally fine if it doesn't come out with the opportunities that you kind of dot in there to just kind of make it at the end, just if you want it to, or it's also fine for secrets to just never come out.
Yes, absolutely.
If it just doesn't happen that way, and there's not a way to somewhat seamlessly or naturally force it to, then sometimes the secret just doesn't come out.
And especially if a player is doing a really good job of dodging those hooks and sort of dodging those questions in an interesting way and in a very sort of character and story driven way, it's totally fine to kind of let them win that.
Yeah. And I think it's very dependent on what the secret is and
absolutely.
the kind of character who has it. A lot of people build a secret because they want it to come out at some point.
Yes.
And that's a majority, so that's why I say a majority of the time, let it happen or force it to happen. But if they're the kind of character who their character and them as a player would be very happy for it to not come out the entire time, but just have these weird mysterious threads out there so that after the campaign they're like, hey guys, guess what this? Then let that be how it is. If that's how it goes, then that's how it goes. And that's totally fine.
Well, and the two reasons that I want to build a secret into a character, if you've announced a new campaign or Brandon or Matty G is running something and I'm sitting down to make a character, if I want to give that character secret, it's to have to dodge it for a while because I know I'm going to have to, and then for that eventual reveal. Mm-hmm. I want to dodge it as long as possible, but I do want it to be revealed eventually. That's absolutely. Part of the point of building a secret into a character, is for the sort of tactical puzzle of avoiding its reveal as long as possible, or kind of smoke screening your way through situations as long as possible, and then for the moment of having to actually explain it to everybody, or having to talk your way out of it once it actually gets revealed.
Mm-hmm. And again, everything is very dependent on the character and the secret, and as we said a lot of times already, secrets are massively broad in what they could be. But if you are, as a player, trying to decide on a good secret for your character, I think there's some kind of foundational building blocks that you can use to make your secret good. I think that, and I want you to chime in on this and give some advice too, when you're trying to choose, if you're like, I want my character to have an interesting secret, I think the number one thing is make it something that can matter in the world. And that doesn't mean it has to be you're secretly, absolutely, integrally intertwined with the main plot of the story, but something that has purchase in the world somewhere, that has building blocks the DM can take and use to build into the world around that secret and make it matter.
NPCs, family names, locations, stuff like that goes a long way towards, specific events that can be referenced, or even, specific events that are going to be general knowledge. Really give your DM a lot of purchase and a lot of ground to kind of play and begin sowing some of those seeds.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And if your secret is, I have this secret that there's someone who wants me dead, but they're on the other end of the world, they have no idea I'm this end of the world, and they have no reason to know I'm on this end of the world, so it doesn't matter, then that's not a secret. That's not something that matters. That's like, okay, cool. That's a fact. That's just a part of your backstory that the DM can breeze over and not worry about. So make the secret matter. Make it intertwined with the world. What are some other ideas you have? What are other things that when you're building a secret you think are important in making it work well and be interesting?
Well, it's not necessarily something that needs to be, like you said, a big deal to like the world at large, but it needs to be something that your character wants to keep secret for one reason or another. Whether it's for good reasons, whether it's for bad reasons. You're like a character secret that ultimately doesn't matter and there's no good reason that a person would try and keep that secret is ultimately just sort of a waste of the whole exercise. Whatever your character secret is needs to be something that like there's a good reason, or at least a reason why this person wants this secret. Maybe it's extremely embarrassing. Maybe it's extremely dangerous. Maybe it's a part of their past they want kind of left forgotten. But there needs to be a reason that they're trying to keep it secret.
There needs to be stakes, right?
Yes.
And I think that the stakes don't have to be high, and they don't even have to be logical depending on the character you're playing. The secret that just came to my mind, and I want to play this character, is to play a, like, barbarian fighter or some sort of frontline, like, macho warrior who secretly loves to bake. And every time you go to a city, says, I'm going to go get us some food, goes to the bake shop, but actually just goes, finds a place to cook, cooks baked goods, and then brings them back saying he got them from a local store, and then just gauges people's reactions because he really likes to know that he did a good job, but never wants them to know it's him in case they don't turn out well.
And it's an excellent way to spend a tool proficiency that you don't know, that you're like, I don't know what to do with this proficiency, but I'll just take Smith's tools. Like, it's an excellent way to take a weird offshoot proficiency to put, like, actual statistical, like, character building resources into something that, like, ultimately may not matter, but it's going to be, it's like, and that's a reveal that is going to be so heartwarming and wonderful when it finally comes out, as well as being, like, extremely embarrassing for that character. And like, that's absolutely going to end up being a part of your character's, main hideout, or, the keep that they end up with a quarter of the way through the campaign. Like, when
they're sitting on their bone throne, and have these tapestries around their crumbled fortress in the mountains, and then their easy bake oven over in the corner for their snickerdoodle cookies.
And it's fun as that character to, specifically, I believe it at least was in Unearthed Arcana. It might have ended up actually in one of the expansions. There was a feat all about, like,
baking goods
and, like, cooking, and it gave, like, statistical bonuses, right? Like, it's so much fun to take that and not tell anybody that that's what you spent your free feat from the beginning of the game on. Or and just, like, trying to keep that element hidden for as long as possible. The Oxventure D&D series on YouTube that I watched through, it comes out very, very early on, but the, like, stylish, swashbuckling, pirate captain rogue, it starts out as, his name starts out as Corazon de Leon. It ends up as Corazon de Viena because his father makes him change it. Because his name is actually Percival Milquetoast. And he's, like, he's the scion of a noble house. Turns out there were members of his family many generations ago who were famous pirate captains, and he wanted to follow in their footsteps, and he doesn't want to be dawdled, and he wants to be the dashing pirate rogue, sailing his ship, the Joyful Damnation, across the seven seas. And that's an excellent reveal because it ultimately doesn't affect the character. It's just slightly embarrassing. but it's absolutely something that character wants to keep secret. The street rat thief who's actually on the run from his noble family and, tells these extravagant tales of growing up alone on the streets and fighting to survive is a fun character to play. It's fun to throw those smoke screens and try and lie your way through as long as possible, and it's going to be an incredible reveal when it happens that the rest of the party will probably never let go.
Oh no, and they will absolutely mercilessly taunt you for it, but that's the character you're playing, and that'll be hilarious.
And that's why you design that. That's why you build that character. You don't build that character to try and get away with it at the end. You build that character for the moment that secret comes out.
And as we've said with some of these previous secrets, some of them will matter the rest of the campaign and be something that they at least have to take into account. Some of them will just be an occasional resource you can call upon. Now that noble house, if the rogue is willing to deal with the doddering mother, then they can go back and have a respite in the fortress. But a lot of them, the reveal happens, and apart from some occasional teasing going forward, the secret is done there. It's revealed, and the party is going to stick together and move on from there.
And it is entirely possible to, on sort of the other end of secrets, to have the DM keep a secret from a player about that character. It should be done very sparingly, and in most cases, it's still good to sort of... It should still, in most cases, still be a conversation between the player and the game master. I think of in particular if you're playing a character if you make a character with amnesia, kind of going with that trope. It's an easy way for you to make a character that ends up being more influenced by the world than dragging a bunch of backstory with them, but to have a character that's going to have a lot of backstory, have that matter, and have it be a surprise to you as well as, all of a sudden you walk into a building in a town you've never been in, and the bartender's like, "You son of a bitch, I told you never to come back here," and it just kind of starts a whole little arc. That's a character with secrets. They're not sort of intentionally keeping those secrets, and it's the DM keeping them from the players. But that is a way to make a character with secrets and to have those reveals and sort of be throwing up the smoke screens entirely unintentionally over the course of the campaign.
And there's also times where you can come up with an idea of a secret that your character has, but not the details of it, and bring that to your DM and let them take the details so that the broad idea. My character is cursed. Hey, yes. DM, my character is cursed.
I want to play a character who is literally extremely cursed.
Exactly.
Like the most cursed.
And then the DM gets to come up with, I wonder what those curses are that they don't know about. Hope they don't take radiant damage. That'd be bad for them, I've decided now.
And then watching over the course of the campaign is every time something really weird would happen, it'd be like, oh, this is related to one of those curses I have.
Yes.
Weird. Why did I have to make a saving throw for the paladin's turn undead?
Yes.
Oh, radiant damage. Looks like I'm blind now.
Uh-oh, there goes the blood tears again. Oh, that was a very spooky game. But anyway, all this being said, that's a fun middle ground between your character's secret and the DM's secret for your character.
And that character, Win Hacks, I would specifically classify as a Shenanigans character.
Which is a beautiful segue.
So Shenanigans characters are sort of an extension of character secret idea. You essentially can't play a Shenanigans character without having some sort of character secret. Sometimes it's revealed right as soon as all the characters meet each other. Sometimes it's not so much later. Sometimes even that character doesn't know. Shenanigans characters just involve a deal cut between the player and the DM. Almost always require some statistical changes, working out some specifics of backstories. That character, Win, is a very good example of... I was mixing, like, Ranger and Dragon Sorcerer, I think. The whole point with that character is, like, the sort of the culture that she was from. They don't take last names, like, from their family. Their family gives them a name, and then every, like, child is brought before, like, the village seer, who gives them their second name. And so, one day this, loving couple brings their child to the local seer, and the local seer's like, get this kid out of here. This child is more cursed than anyone I've ever seen. And that character grows up into this, like, incredibly capable cheerful, like, explorer who has absolutely no idea what all of these supposed curses are. Like, never encountered them. She just has no idea, like, it's like, that village seer won't even look at me these days. When I was little, I used to chase it around town because she was terrified of me. Like, I have no idea what any of these curses she talks about are. I make that character knowing Ericsson's going to run away with this, and it's going to be a fun reveal for me. I will be learning an element of my character as as these curses are revealed or as elements of them are revealed.
And you knew me as a DM would have a ton of fun coming up with, like, what are some curses that make sense for the world, that can tie into the story of the world, that would not have come up for you to know them yet. Yes. Things like a character very rarely takes radiant damage. Mm-hmm. A character that isn't a cleric or hanging around clerics very rarely is next to someone when they're turning the undead.
Right.
Things like that. So it makes sense that the first time these things happen that you're like, oh god, oh, that's what one of my curses is.
Well, and in those situations, you want to kind of make the triggers for those curses sensible for whatever the secret backstory is, but something that's not going to just come up every session. It's a lot more fun when it triggers every once in a while, and when it's multiple things that get a reaction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As we've transitioned over into Shenanigans characters, this is your area of expertise, I think. But
I love Shenanigans characters.
There's a broad swath of what a Shenanigans character can be. Mm-hmm. I think the easiest way to discuss Shenanigans characters is just give examples of Shenanigans characters and then go into what makes them a Shenanigans character. So let's discuss every character you've had.
It's definitely not every character.
Definitely not every character. It's like a 50-50.
And I like doing this with NPCs as well. Mm-hmm. They're a nice thing to kind of have in the back of your mind if you're running games or if you're coming up with characters. You really need a DM who's on board with it. You need a play group who's on board with it. And it shouldn't be every character you make. And even when you are making Shenanigans characters, they shouldn't necessarily be the main character of the story.
They shouldn't kind of be that leader role a lot
yes,
of the time.
They can be, but I find it's a lot of times a lot more fun to, like, intentionally build a sidekick or sort of intentionally build the minion or the lancer for the party. Like, I have a lot of fun with those character concepts, and it gives you some freedom in terms of Shenanigans characters and what the DM is going to allow. If you're trying to make a character that's very obviously supposed to be the main character, a lot of game masters will automatically kind of start turning down that kind of thing. Quite often in D&D campaigns or in Savage Worlds games, one character will show up as kind of the main character over the course of it. But that should happen organically. It shouldn't necessarily be done from character creation. And that's, like, part of the point of telling these stories is that everybody kind of has equal say. Mm-hmm. So don't intentionally... The whole, like main character complex thing really doesn't work.
No.
And really just causes issues. So it's better to just kind of come up with side characters and stuff like that. The most recent Shenanigans characters... I've always got ideas brewing.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the most recent Shenanigans characters that I made... I, for a while, had been wanting to play a wizard who had been turned into a cat by another wizard, and he couldn't figure out how to undo it. Like, it wasn't true polymorph, like, because, like, lifting curses, like, trying to use a spell to lift a curse or any of that type of stuff wouldn't undo it. He was just permanently stuck as a cat. And so he's like, so it's a wizard on a quest to find out how to, like, fix this, but he's just stuck as a regular black cat, which prompted immediate deals and discussions because, like, if you're playing just a regular cat, but with a player character's line of statistics, that's going to be an extremely strong character. Mm-hmm. You're quite small. You're quite stealthy. It's especially, like, mixing spellcaster or something like that into it, or heavens forbid, rogue, is going to be a serious issue.
Rogues.
So it took specific deals about, like, how stats could look, about, like, just sort of strict stuff that I was not allowed to do. And it came with other funny RP issues, like the fact that the character does not have opposable thumbs.
Yes.
He can talk, he can cast spells, but if he wants to set up a big complex ritual circle, he kind of needs somebody else to do it for him. He can't really carry anything because he's a cat. So my character had this, like, just poor assistant, and he was extremely overbearing on his assistant and just made her do everything for him, and was constantly dragging her into dangerous situations, which is not what that character signed up for at all when they went to wizard school.
And got their work-study job with a master wizard.
Right. And that's a Shenanigans characters where you're not going to hold over that reveal. Right. It's as soon as that character's introduced, it's not a young wizard and her familiar. It's a wizard and his apprentice. But it's done entirely for that moment, for that reveal, and then for the goofiness over the rest of the campaign of, of the character under duress trying to find something in a spell book and cursing his lack of opposable thumbs. So the moment where we went to talk to a voodoo witch doctor and he opened the door, I said hello, and he just shut the door. Or for the second assassination attempt on the ruler that I was acting as the advisor of, who was kind of the main character of that story. He was another one of the players. He gets shot at by somebody with a crossbow, and it's just like, stay down, my lord, and the tree explodes.
The cat waves its paws in the air, and the tree explodes as Shatter is cast.
It's done entirely for the goofiness of those moments. The character itself it's Shenanigans went into the making of that character and the backstory of that character. That's the most recent one. Win Hex is another excellent example. Sometimes it can be hard to pick out between character secrets and where they blur the line between character secrets and a true Shenanigans character. I played a character using the Order of Lycan Blood Hunter build way back in the day. Sheesh, I don't want to think about how many years ago that was.
That was in the before time. We don't talk about that time.
Whose character secret was that they were a werewolf. I used a lot of the Order of the Lycan abilities, but sort of never when other players were around. It was trying to be very sparing with a lot of it. And I could get away with it because people didn't really know how that class worked at the time. The Shenanigans came into the fact that that character was a sort of giving into their werewolf side as a sort of Batman-style vigilante, hunting through the city at night and killing evildoers. Which is, that's the sort of Shenanigans level of that character. The secret level is just the lycanthropy, and then there's, it's taken to sort of Shenanigans level with another piece bolted onto it. But it once again requires, that's not something I can spring on the Game Master.
No.
It's something that the Game Master has to, agree with and, work into the world.
And we've said it before, we'll say it again. Talk with your DM about
Absolutely.
this stuff. It will go better and be more fun if you do. It's fun to spring that on the other players and for them as their characters to have to react in the moment. It's not fun for your DM to have to try and understand what your secret was this whole time that you kept from and not be able for that DM to weave it into the world and to set things up to where you can have a cool reveal with it. If you feel the need to keep your character secret from your DM, you probably need to readdress the way you look at the game or readdress your friend group that you're playing with.
Yes.
And that's just kind of our broad stance on D&D a lot. Is the DM's there to facilitate storytelling. They're not there to go against you, and they're not there to keep secrets from in that sort of way. So a lot of times it seems like the Shenanigans... The secrets also take buy-in from the DM and the DM weaving them into the stories. Right. A Shenanigans character typically means that a deal is made with the DM, or there is either extra sessions in the background being played, or there are rules changes. There are things that are fundamentally different, and I think that it's kind of hard to differentiate a lot of the time. We've talked a little. It's kind of the square rectangle thing we've said, where every character's secret is not a Shenanigans character, but every Shenanigans character pretty much has a character secret. How do you think that you could best define that line? You've kind of given some examples, but is there a way to word it?
To me, by and large, it's if you are having to reach... If you were the DM, are somehow actually... And, and it's a little bit different for everybody because everybody uses house rules to one degree or another. and kind of changes the raw statistics and rules of the game. But if you or the DM are having to either make specific rules allowances, or you're giving access to something that a character statistically wouldn't otherwise have, you're, for the sake of sort of a character secret, you're bleeding into Shenanigans characters' territory. Mm-hmm. If you are, to some degrees, playing the game in a way it wasn't necessarily intended to be played. For example, I've often thought about how it would be a lot of fun to give a spellcaster, a low-level spellcaster, like, one use of a, like, dimension-hopping spell. Like, it's like you have one use of a spell that will teleport, you know, like, I don't, like...
Plane shift or something.
Exactly. Like, you have one use of plane shift. Coming with the caveat that when you reach that level, you are not allowed to take plane shift as a spell. But you have one use of it. And you are allowed... you don't need a spell slot to cast it. It's not on your prepared spells list. You just always have that one use of it. Entirely for the moment when the character uses that to get themselves or another character or the party out of a bad situation. But it's very much supposed to be an out of the frying pan into the fire type of...
The fire being the infernal plane of hell.
Or, you know, or we, you know, it's like, well, we have no way of getting out of this situation. This character is attempting to heroically sacrifice himself to save the rest of the party. I'll let the rest of the party escape, but me and Hero Boy over here, like, hold on tight, buddy, and you jump both of you to the Feywild. Now you have those two characters are in the Feywild, and they have to find a new way back. And those are going to be really fun side sessions where it's the mage and the barbarian wandering the Feywilds trying to find a way home, while the rest of the party is like... I don't know why the wizard ran in there when the ceiling collapsed, and now they're both just gone. Like,
the dead. There was not even a body to recover. They got smashed into such a fine jelly.
You know, and then so it's like the characters are like, well, I guess we'll continue trying to save the world or pay our bills for the guild hall or whatever, while you've got two characters trying to find a way home.
What I picture here is they get smashed, and there's this, they've been smashed into such a fine jelly, we can't have them. And then there's this funeral where they don't even have a coffin because there's no body, and they're all sitting there crying. And then a portal rips open, both the players fly through it, and the red fist sticks out and says, "And stay out!"
Exactly. You know, like, those are going to be fun side sessions, but giving that allowance to a character, or giving a character exactly one use of power word kill. We're all statting out first level characters. Maybe it's not even the wizard. Maybe it's the druid. Maybe it's the fighter. Like, somebody gets exactly one use of power word kill. It doesn't take a spell slot to cast. It doesn't go on a prepared spell list. They just have the one. And you know, as the game master building this, that up to a certain point in the campaign, that will nuke a single encounter. That as soon as the player decides to use it, it's over. There's a very good chance they never use it. Mm-hmm. Because what if I need it later?
Exactly.
Same reason you end any RPG with a million healing potions. Yeah. Exactly. You know, or I'm carrying around 60 guns, all of which are half full on ammo, because what if I need them for a big boss fight later? Mm. And then every boss fight you're in is like, no, this isn't the one.
2 guns.
This isn't the one. I'll save these for a bigger boss fight later. There's a very good chance that the players will never use it, or that they'll use it in just a beautifully cinematic moment, or in a beautifully goofy moment. You know, when they use it on on a commoner with 4 hit points entirely because the level of spite has grown that high. In which case, you've done your job in building your NPCs. Like, if that is a secret from the rest of the party, you and the player know that for whatever story reason, he's got this one pocket spell. That's, at that point, a Shenanigans character. An allowance by the rules has been made to give this player access to something they shouldn't have. And it's something that, as a game master, you are always going to have in mind. You can potentially occasionally reference, or you can always try and bait it out. Mm-hmm. Like, that's going to be a lot of fun, is like trying to get your trigger happy rogue to use that one power word kill he's got.
And then send the 99 hit point dark wizard out to fight the party immediately afterwards.
You're just always baiting him. It's just always right there. And, that look on his face, as the super annoying NPC is just, making the party mad for the 100th time. It's the look that you and that character share of like, you could see it in his face. Oh, he wants to do it so bad. Like at that point, that's sort of Shenanigans character. Mm-hmm. It's entirely possible for a DM to kind of turn a character into a bit more of a Shenanigans character. But typically it will be a character coming forward with a character idea that's non-standard and having to make a deal with a DM of some sort.
Time for caveat. And that is the kind of things about how this goes wrong and what to avoid with this. I think you brought up one very important one, which is I joke, let's just go over every character you've ever made because you like Shenanigans characters. Maybe 1 in 3 characters you've made is a Shenanigans character.
Right.
Maybe. Making every character you play be this rule-altering weirdo loses its punch dramatically.
Absolutely.
Exponentially every time you do it. It's no longer, whoa, okay, the cat's the wizard. It's, of course the fucking cat's the wizard. It's Will's character.
There's an excellent comic which
yes,
which takes a couple of panels from, I think, an old Marvel comic, and it's, everybody's first D&D character, and it's a party from the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship. And then, it's everybody's 6th D&D character, and it's like, wow, a dinosaur. And this guy's covered in bees?
I am bees.
This guy's bees.
Yeah. And while playing the sentient raptor, or the guy who has been somehow polymorphed into a swarm of bees, could be a fun and interesting character. If those are your characters you played back-to-back, and right before that you were the other weirdo, then it loses its punch. Mm-hmm. And I think that deep Shenanigans characters are a palate cleanser there, and an occasional switch up from a normal character.
And it's, and if you want it to actually, if you want that punch to actually land, that reveal to actually be interesting and to get a reaction out of people, you can't be relying on a reveal every campaign.
Exactly. And I think that it's a really dangerous mindset to get into, to crave that constantly for every character you make, because you miss out on how amazingly fun a plain ass white bread character can be.
Absolutely. And for a long time I've really wanted to play a character who's a farmer, who had stat him as a basic fighter. He has a wife and 2 kids at home, but he's taken up adventuring because that's where the money is.
Farming? Kidding me?
I make, the
Knolls burn the farm down every other week.
Well, it's just I raid a good dungeon a month.
You're set.
And my family's set for years. And he's sending most of his money home to his family. He's kind of keeping enough to live by or to upgrade his equipment, but he's sending all the rest just home to his family. It's our standard of living is, gone up tenfold. We're not always, once, hoping the rains come, otherwise we go hungry. It's the family just has enough now.
Enough that my son is able to go to, has been able to get cleaned up enough to go get a job as a kind of courtsman and start to learn the trade of politics. And my daughter's off to wizard school, and it's all on my dollar because I've been off adventuring.
As well, she's like, oh, we were able to fix up the house, and just put everything back together, and as soon as I make X amount of money, I'm just retiring,
kicking my feet up.
Exactly. And then doing that when you hit that point, because that is going to be such an excellent moment halfway through your campaign where that character's just
she's doing some math. I retire.
Yeah. And then they have the guild, the Adventure Guild has this fun little send-off party for him. He goes home and you roll up a new character.
Something I love about that is it's such a white bread character that it's almost gone full swing back around to a Shenanigans character.
Well, that's the thing about tabletop RPGs kind of in general, right? Is what works best is to have character, a whole cast of characters that are relatively basic and have 1 or 2 standouts. But everybody wants to just make weird characters and do something weird and make characters with secrets or make characters
that stand out.
Absolutely. Or, or they find a stat block that they think is really interesting, or they fall in love with a certain enemy type. Like, I think gnolls are rad. So much of the artwork I've seen for gnolls is really cool. There were a couple editions where the gnoll artwork is just terrible. But there's like a ton of really cool like gnoll artwork out there that's just like, I want to play a gnoll. I want to play a gnoll barbarian. I want to play a gnoll witch doctor. Like, I like playing gnolls. But that is what all of D&D becomes. What all of various tabletop RPGs become is, people want to make weird characters or standout characters or make characters that they find interesting. And then all of a sudden you end up in situations where it's like, all right, we've got this fancy set of Imperial armor. Somebody can sneak into this fortress.
Too bad we're a Minotaur, a Kinra, a Loxodon, and a Lizard Folk. Exactly. And so none of us can put this on and pass as anything close to human or not.
It's like, that's exactly the issue that you just tend to run into in D&D. So all of a sudden making very basic characters becomes very interesting as well.
When weird becomes normal, normal becomes weird.
Absolutely.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if, like we talked about, like playing a Shenanigans character or making a character with a good character secret, part of what you want is that reveal. The better a job you make of the shenanigans being hidden, the better that reveal is when it happens. Because if nobody at the table, apart from the rogue and the DM, know that he's got that one pocket use of power word kill because of whatever crazy backstory he has, that moment where he looks at the DM because of whatever's going on and says, I cast power word kill, and the DM goes, okay, he dies, and you're all 5th level characters, is going to be
fantastic. You cast what now?
Like, it's going to immediately go from this, oh, haha, very funny, to, I'm sorry, what? Did you just say it works? And the rogue's still angry about whatever it was that just happened that made him use it.
And a brief aside with that, I recommend there being some sort of cost if you give us a single use like that. Be it that, like, this player's got some sort of dark deal in his past, and if he uses that, then he's technically his soul is now signed off on that contract to the devil or whatever.
Or technically that means that he owes a favor to a powerful eldritch being. Like, the eldritch being is like, I'll kill this guy for you.
Yeah.
Let me know when, and
I will take his heart and I will teleport it out into the abyss where I am spinning around in the astral plane. But
then you're going to owe me one.
Then you've got to go and do something that a spaghetti monster in space wants you to do. And who knows what that's going to be.
And then that moment of, like, that triggers a fun second reveal of... the wormhole opens, just like 6 tentacles and 30 eyes come writhing through.
Yeah,
exactly. And Hermaeus Mora tells you that you now need to go climb to the peak of the highest mountain, where you'll find a wizard's tower, and you need to get, the golden chalice from that wizard, because it's some important artifact. You need to bring it back here. The portal's going to stay here the whole time you're gone, just in this tavern. And you need to come back and just give it to, this eldritch being. And, like, now, and it's like, and it's even better if the character sort of knows the cost of, like, trying to bypass that deal. And it's like, why does he want this golden chalice? I don't know.
Oh, he probably shouldn't have.
And it's even better if you go and talk to the wizard and you're like, this guy's kind of a bro. I kind of like this guy.
I don't want to rob him.
We really need this guy on our side for, X other story reasons.
But if I don't bring this to Hermaeus Mora, he'll teleport my heart out to the astral plane. So I got to do this.
And that's, once again, that's making a deal with your game master. And it's fine to, make a deal with the game master to get certain statistical benefits at character creation because of the type of character you want to play. That comes at a cost of other stats, or what I've done with you in the past is like, I'll give you this benefit with this downside, and you are not allowed to do X.
You're not allowed to. Usually X being some version of recovering that downside.
Yes.
The example is Hadrian, a character I played in the past, where I got a benefit in my ability to be intimidating, because my character, in return, had a negative to his movement speed, and it was part of this like, braced leg injury that he's constantly, like... He's very, what's the Auror that gets thrown in the box in the 4th Harry Potter movie? He's got Mad-Eye Moody. I was like, the one that's got the Mad Eye. Mad-Eye Moody, right? Where it's like, he's this, like, lumbering, like, as he steps in, he demands this kind of fear and respect from people, but he's slower because he's got a bum leg. And the caveat being, I can never do anything to recover that movement speed. I will always be half the speed of most of the party.
Yes, and, like, that's... you're taking a statistical hit in order to get a statistical bonus that you feel like is worth it. But the important part of that conversation is, like, here's a hard and fast limit. You are not allowed to do this with the character. And as a DM, and I want to do a video on this fairly soon, I love cutting those types of deals with players. And as a player, I love those deals being offered. You and I have had the conversation a lot about how you can never offer anything with a benefit and a downside to the players because the players will just take it every time. It can be very hard to, like, make those deals sometimes as a game master, because if it's a really well-balanced one, the player will kind of think about it for a second. But I love, as a player, having those deals presented to me because I find that the setbacks make characters more interesting, and whatever bonus I'm getting makes characters cooler. So I just feels like a win-win to me anyway, which I think is why I'm so drawn to kind of the concept of Shenanigans characters. Why I'm, drawn to the idea of, like, I want to play some wizard's familiar that's been polymorphed into a person, and he's sent them out into the world to become an adventurer and spy on the heroes. Like, it's his villain in his tower looking through his familiar's eyes the whole time as I'm just bumming around with the heroes trying to save the world, knowing that either eventually I will die and just vanish, which will trigger kind of a weird moment for the party, or, reach the end game, and as we've talked about in sort of betrayals and PvP, I will expect to die in that fight.
As that reveal happens.
As that reveal happens, absolutely. Like, it's, or I betray my master so he just unsummons me, which removes my statistical counter from either side in that fight. That's very much a Shenanigans character. By the rules, are you allowed to true polymorph your familiar and send him out to the world to become an adventurer? I don't know. I sort of doubt it. If a member of my player group was playing a high enough level wizard to true polymorph
to try that.
Whoa! What if I true polymorphed my familiar, turned him into just like a low level character? If a player of mine suggested that, I would probably not allow it, because that's essentially giving, just turning their familiar into a potentially capable combatant, and especially if that combatant is going to level up.
True polymorph, I don't know if you can't turn into anything other than beasts, maybe. Still?
No, true polymorph.
I don't think you can turn into humanoids. We'd have
I
to
think
look
you
it up.
Humanoids, but
we'd have to look it up.
We'd have to look it up.
But for the sake of that story, I'd allow it regardless.
Right. It's something that is like, by the rules, I probably wouldn't let a group of players do it. But if that's the sort of Shenanigans character backstory that somebody wants to build, that's fine, partially because the wizard is under the control of the DM at that point, and it can require some deals back and forth.
Can be anything. Just has to have a challenge rating equal or less than the target's, or its level.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is a conversation for another day. That's challenge rating? Anyway, don't worry about it.
What's challenge rating?
Don't worry about it.
What level character are you? What level? What?
I don't need to make a character.
What level of character are you going to need to polymorph in order to true polymorph?
Change their doesn't matter. We'll get back to this. This is an off-air conversation. I've had an idea. Not for a Shenanigans character necessarily. Anyway, the way I look at it with Shenanigans, with like altering your character, with detriments, benefits, or just things that shift the way the rules are working fundamentally, is that character options are like press. There's no such thing as bad press. Even if the options or the changes are detriments, it makes you more interesting. If you take a character that has nothing and you give a -15 and a +15, that's now two different interesting points that balance back out to 0. But It's kind of the edges hindrances system from
Absolutely.
Savage Worlds, and why characters seem so interesting from that. It's because it doesn't matter that 3 of these things are bad and 2 of these things are good or whatever. Those kinds of changes and augmentations always just add another depth layer to the character and make it more interesting. So that's an amazing piece of those Shenanigans characters.
It's part of the reason that we roll stat lines in D&D now the way that we do, is because it pushes the minimum a little bit lower, it pushes the maximum a little bit higher, and it makes both of those equally likely. We tend to have to roll multiple times in order to get a balanced
to make sure it's not
stat line.
318s or whatever.
Right.
Stupid.
But it just... Playing characters that are bad at something is a lot of fun.
And that can play into a Shenanigans character very easily.
Absolutely. It's very easy to make Shenanigans characters that are extremely bad at certain things because of the shenanigans that they're dealing with. Or characters that, because of the sort of stacking shenanigans of that character concept, are going to get worse over time. This is another character concept that I just immediately brought to you of like, I have this idea, and I know that what you're going to create with it is going to be very cool. I had an idea for a... probably started as a Kensai monk because of kind of the idea I had with the character, where a famous swordsmaster was approached by these 13 adventurers. They were, he was asked to make essentially 13 legendary swords for these famous swordsmen. But they were all assholes. So, and he was such a petty and vindictive person that he, like, killed 13 people, bound their souls into the swords, and used them to, like, create super powerful swords, but also extremely cursed swords. Each one tailored to the swordsmith to the swordsman that he was going to give it to. And now those swords are all out there in the world, 200 years later, just causing strife.
And locking away the souls of those who don't deserve, hopefully, to be locked in.
Right.
Swords.
There's swordsmen all over the world, or adventurers, or kings using these blades, being subject to their curses, and like it's all the problems it's causing. And playing a character whose master owned one of these swords, was killed by another one who had the sword, and now he has one of the cursed swords, and he's going to round up the other 12 and destroy them.
Of course, the only place they can be destroyed is in the forge they were made.
Right, and he's got to do it all at once.
I'm just picturing the end of the Lord of the Rings, but it's a stack of 13 swords
that they've had to carry
the whole way, and then Gollum's jumping on him and like biting both of his wrists off, so he drops the swords and trying to haul them all out of there. Anyway,
holding all
of them as he sinks into the magma.
Yeah.
Lava, magma. It's not to the surface, right? So it'd be.
But it's exposed to air?
I don't
know. Technicalities. But the point of that character was like, it's like, I think this is kind of a cool character, doing this like Kensai monk build to do this like super dangerous like one-on-one like swordsman who's trained as a blacksmith and stuff. And, the idea of eventually of him, carrying around these 13 swords all wrapped in a big bundle is going to be really cool.
And having to face
but it's going
all those curses.
It's going to subject him to every single one of those curses over the course of that time. And whether he gets 2 of them back to back, or whether there's 6 months in between acquiring a couple of them, those curses are just going to be stacking and stacking and stacking. And each of the swords will have different unique statistical benefits, maybe. But that's not what makes a character interesting. What makes a character interesting is this guy willingly subjecting himself to like all of this torment in order to like rid the world of this evil. And that's a very personal quest. He's not going to let anybody else carry these swords. He doesn't want anybody else to have to deal with this. And ultimately it's, that this side quest doesn't have all that much to do with the, powerful wizard cult that's trying to summon an eldritch horror into the world. Whatever your main story is, probably isn't this story. There will be threads kind of tied in there.
Absolutely villainous NPCs who have some of them.
Or friendly NPCs who have them, but aren't willing to give them up. And, so it's always triggering this, like, these sort of moral questions of, like, what is it worth to get a hold of these in order to destroy them? like, that's a Shenanigans character that's a little more open in terms of the sort of shenanigans behind the character. At least eventually it's going to be very open to the rest of the party. But it very much requires the DM. It's very much kind of a non-standard character, and it very much requires the DM to piece a bunch of stuff together and forces that character to deal with interesting statistical downsides.
Mm-hmm. I think that's... I think we're getting close to the end of our time. Mm-hmm. We've gone on lots of different rants, all of which at least tangentially related. Shenanigans secrets, they tie in quite nicely. I think it's not a bad idea for pretty much every character to have a secret, yes, but for very few of your characters to be Shenanigans characters.
That should be the general rule. And very few characters within a party to be Shenanigans characters.
Yes.
It's excellent when every character within a party has a secret or secrets. It doesn't work well if there's a ton of Shenanigans characters all within the same party.
Absolutely. Especially, and the more varied the secrets, the better. And the more varied those Shenanigans characters, kind of the better, but not. When there's a bunch of Shenanigans characters, it becomes a little overly goofy a lot of the time. And if that's not the game you're going for, shy away from that. So, use character secrets. As a DM, for the next game you start, just do what I did at our first game, where you just take each person aside and say, your character has a secret. What is it? And have a couple ideas you can throw out there, or like help them build ideas if they don't have one. But make everyone have a secret, and secret ranging from things that are very important to things that are only really important to the character themselves, and tie them into the world. And just watch how much content you get for free from this. Absolutely. How much inspiration and how many quests and characters and NPCs and world building gets kind of done for you by the fact that this secret exists and you have to tie it in somehow. It's
just how much depth it's going to add to the world.
Absolutely. And how tied in every character will feel and grounded they will feel.
The single best way to add depth to a world is consequences.
Secrets add a lot of consequences.
People responding to the things your player characters have done in both good ways and bad. The world remembering the things that players have done. Secrets really drive that. It either makes backstory matter, or it makes their decisions going forward and trying to sort of keep those secrets really matter. Tease those secrets early. Don't reveal them in the first session, but begin teasing some of the secrets off and on early on in the campaign. And don't be afraid to kind of force reveals at times. I wouldn't necessarily force every secret into the open over the course of the campaign, but you can force them occasionally in good story moments, especially if you know the player's going to respond well to it. Tease them early. Begin to confront players with them fairly early, and let players dodge them, throw up smoke screens, avoid them, or just break down and admit it.
And with Shenanigans characters, try one. Mm-hmm. And then don't for a while.
don't as a game master, don't be against players trying to make a non-standard character.
Be willing to make those deals.
But be willing to make those deals.
Mm-hmm. Be willing to make those deals, cut those deals, change the way the rules work. Be cautious with that if you're new at DMing, to make sure that you don't wildly twist some rule and make things very non-functional. But as you get really comfortable with the rules in the game, feel free to throw some wrenches in there and make things weird and different, and let characters make those kinds of deals and have those kind of shenanigans and tie that into their secrets.
And shenanigans, similar to the secrets, shouldn't be something that's coming up every single session. No. Whatever benefit they're getting, they shouldn't be getting necessarily in every single fight. Whatever their one-off ability is, or their limited use item is that they're sort of cutting a deal for, shouldn't all just get burnt out in the first session. It should come up rarely, and it should come up tastefully, I suppose, at least somewhat cautiously. And again, give your players a chance to kind of dodge the question, to kind of avoid or at least stave off the impact of their actions.
I think that's a decent place for us to stop. The secrets, shenanigans, use them. Secrets are fun, shenanigans are fun. Try them out in your game. Be willing to work with your players as a DM and be creative and have fun with it as a player. And totally try and throw some secrets into your next campaign.
It's important to remember that this is a that all of these systems have rules. They have rules for good reasons. But these are not systems limited by a game engine or what the developers thought to program in. Like, these are games, by and large, where the upper limit is imagination.
Yes.
And with a good
That's
play
what
group
makes them fun.
And a good game master, you can really stretch the rules to make things more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If you enjoyed this, please throw a like. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Our channel has a ton of D&D and other RPG-related stuff. Lots of Savage World stuff, Star Wars RPG stuff, games, reviews, rules, breakdowns with our Help Action series. And if you're interested, if you listen to these, if you enjoy this, we have a huge list of topics that we just mindlessly scroll through and are like, this is the one for today.
I had another one to that list the other day. Now I don't remember what it was.
We might add some more. If you have an idea of just a broad topic that you think would be fun to hear us idiots talk about, then throw that down into the comments and we'll consider throwing that on the list, and maybe it'll be the next one we do. Thank you all for watching and listening, and we will see you in the next one.